Exciting Olympic time for everybody, especially the business of it. Lucky and happy to be joined by friend and the president of the United States Olympic Committee via Skype from Colorado Springs, Scott Blackmun. Scott, how are you?
Hey, Rick, I'm well. How about you?
Awesome, as usual. When I interviewed IOC Chairman Thomas Bach almost exactly a year ago, you remember, in Toronto, he believed that Rio was, in his words, ready for the games, and the diversity of enrichment would show the Brazilian culture to the world. And just like Sochi, there are always concerns about readiness of this worldwide event. How do you personally feel about Brazil's readiness to host the games?
You know, we've got a pretty good crew down there already. They feel great about our level of preparedness. Our rooms are ready. Rick, you remember Athens? There was a lot of concern heading into Athens about whether the venues were going to be ready. The thing is, once the competition starts, once August 5th comes, finally, I think everybody's going to begin to focus on our athletes, on the field of play, and much less so on all the things that are going on the side, whether it's the politics, the Zika, the water quality, the doping. You know, all of that stuff is kind of first and foremost in people's minds today, but I think that's all going to go away on August 5th.
And clearly for you, too, as the United States head businessman for the entire U.S. Olympic effort, you included a USA Team Registry, a crowdfunding website where fans could make individual gifts to support U.S. athletes. From a financial support perspective, are our athletes ready for the games?
They are absolutely ready. You know, we wish we could support more of them, Rick. We probably support, about 1,500 athletes, which means there are some athletes who are competing for a spot on the Olympic team who we can't support. And our goal ultimately is to be able to give everybody the kind of support that they need to be on the podium. We're competing against nations that invest in sport, invest in the Olympics on a pretty massive scale. China, Russia, some others. We are totally privately funded. We're fortunate to have the support of many, many Americans, both sponsor companies and our donors, and so we feel great about the support that we can provide to our athletes, but it sure be nice if we could support more of them.
Well, and you do move entrepreneurial mountains, and I know your frustration. How do you basically feel waking up every day and competing against those publicly funded state programs that dominate the global landscape that you were just mentioning?
We have the greatest group of athletes on the planet. So we've won the medal count in every summer games since Atlanta. We've won the medal count in the winter games. So we're very, very fortunate that we've got good systems, good community systems here. Our collegiate system, the support that we get from NCAA institutions is unbelievable. It is a little daunting to compete against the kinds of investments that other nations are making, but it's hard to complain about our structure because our athletes are doing great and they're winning the medal count.
Well, let's go across those 40-some-odd national governing bodies. So how do you balance the sports that really, 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 really depend on you and those NGBs, fencing, judos, many of the lesser-known sports, against the professionally dominated programs, tennis, golf, soccer, basketball, and the like?
So we have limited resources, as I said earlier. We can't support everybody. What we try to do is make sure that the dollars that we do invest really have an impact on our ability to win medals at the Olympic and the Paralympic Games. So when we look at a sport like basketball, there's not a lot that we can do to make our men's basketball team better. It's a fantastic team. They're well coached. They're well trained. There are other sports where we've got an opportunity to win a medal. So you look at a sport like swimming or rowing or gymnastics, where they don't have that same level of infrastructure and training that a men's basketball might. So the way we look at it is where can our dollars have the greatest impact? As you probably know, we don't invest in sports where we really don't have a reasonable opportunity to medal. So that's always the analysis that Alan Ashley, who leads our sport group, undertakes to determine how we allocate our resources.
It's an ongoing and interesting mixture of financial and political acumen. A year ago in that interview we talked about with Thomas Bach, he praised his corruption reform issues and that, in his words, all instruments are in place to prevent corruption. He was referring to the bid process and also protecting clean athletes. Talk about the recent Russian ruling and also the Olympic movement itself. Is it dealing adequately with leveling the playing field between countries with various anti-doping policies?
You mentioned corruption and bidding and doping, and I'll say on the bidding front, the rules that they put in place are really working. This is a much more efficient process. I think cities are spending less money than they ever have before. We have an incredibly strong bid that's in play from Los Angeles. I would give the IOC extremely high marks on kind of managing the bid function. On the doping side, they found themselves in a no-win position. 2 weeks out from the games, they didn't really have an option that would have kept everybody happy. I understand where they are coming from when they express concern about individual justice. And if you ban the whole Russian team, there are going to be some athletes, some clean athletes who, I think are unfairly treated as a part of that. On the other hand, we have all the clean athletes around the world who are going to have to line up against, the Russian team. And I think we also have to think about individual justice from their perspective. So we've kind of gotten ourselves into a mess here. I think the important thing is that we need to fix this system going forward. We need a truly independent system. We can't have all the overlap that we currently have between WADA on the one hand and the IOC and the international federations on the other hand. And I think the IOC is genuinely committed to changing the system, to try to make it better and to try to make it more unlikely that this could happen again, because this is unfair. It's an embarrassment, and it's frankly something that's threatening to the very essence of the Olympic movement. So we really have to focus our attention on it immediately after Rio.
Well, and you're right in the sense that Thomas Bach, remember, preached empowerment and transparency, and under these circumstances, he's doing the best he can on that, and hopefully able to move forward immediately after the games, as you said. Baseball and football not presently at the Olympics. The Olympics, as the NBA has proved, is a great platform for global expansion. We all know that. Can you look down the road and see baseball or football as part of future Olympic Games?
I think one of the great things about the changes that were made to the program of the Olympic Games, meaning the sports that get to be competed there, is that the organizing committees going forward are going to have more influence over that. So, as you look at, what Tokyo might do or what the winner of the 2024 race might do, I think there is an opportunity for sports as long as they are universal, meaning, practiced in many, many nations. I think the challenge that American football would have is that it's just not being played in enough nations. It's not going to get as much traction as something like baseball would get. So I'd say, baseball, high likelihood. Women's softball, probably even higher likelihood. Football, probably not so much at this point in time.
Perfect segue into the winner of the 2024 race. Thank you for doing that. Last year, Thomas Bach commented on the improved attitude and relationship between his organization and yours, meaning you. 2024 Boston fallout is a distant dream, but L.A. seems poised to grab these games when the selection is made next year. How do you feel about their process and the prospects for success?
They have an amazing bid, and it's amazing in a couple of different respects. One, they only have to build one new permanent venue. So as you look at all the sports that are competed in the Olympic Games, they're going to have venues that are either temporary or that are already in place. And so from an expense perspective, it's going to be one of the most, economically efficient games ever. The other thing that is very, very strong about their bid is that, one of the things that's important to the IOC is connecting the Olympic movement and the Olympic Games to youth. And if you look at the assets that we have in California, whether it's Silicon Valley or some of the companies, the tech companies down in Los Angeles, I think, America's bid is uniquely positioned to help the IOC make that connection to youth, to make the Olympic Games relevant to the public. And so I'm excited about it for both of those reasons. We've also got great leaders, Casey Wasserman, Gene Sykes, Mayor Eric Garcetti, just doing a phenomenal job of leading that bid. And it's got community support like nothing we've ever seen before. I think 87 or 88% public support. And remember, in Boston, I think we got down below 40% at one point. So we couldn't be happier about that, Rick.